Shocking details that we're now discovering that the police in Uvalde, Texas, unlike what we were told initially, were literally in the school. They could have stopped the killer. They were armed with high-powered weapons as well as body armor, yet the on-site commander did not give them the order to go in. 19 kids died. 2 adults were shot and killed as well. This is the Texas Department of Public Safety appearing today at a hearing in the state capitol. Listen to what he said.
There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure and antithetical to everything we've learned over the last 2 decades since the Columbine massacre. 3 minutes after the subject entered the West Building, there was a sufficient number of armed officers wearing body armor to isolate, distract, and neutralize the subject. The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander, who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children. The officers had weapons, the children had none. The officers had body armor, the children had none. The officers had training, the subject had none. 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 8 seconds. That's how long the children waited and the teachers waited in rooms 111 to be rescued. And while they waited, the on-scene commander waited for a radio and rifles. Then he waited for shields. Then he waited for SWAT. Lastly, he waited for a key that was never needed. The post-Columbine doctrine is clear and compelling and unambiguous. Stop the killing, stop the dying. You can't do the former unless you can't do the latter unless you do the former. Certainly, some things were done well, and even very well. The teachers quickly implemented active shooter protocols prior to the subject gaining entry. In fact, one teacher was able to call 911 and report that before the subject entered the campus. Law enforcement officers were able to evacuate hundreds of children in a safe and orderly manner. The district attorney, Christina Mitchell, and her staff led tireless efforts to take care of the victims and their families in the aftermath. And Senator Gutierrez talked a little about victim identification and victim notification. That is always a priority after such a tragedy. Very difficult to do, and she did an outstanding job in trying to handle that situation, blending all the different resources from local, state, and federal agencies at the time.
We were flat out lied to, Jason Nichols. They talked about, they lauded these officers in the role that they played after. To hear that 3 minutes after this shooter entered the building, the cops were in position to take him down, and they waited more than an hour, and he slaughtered 21 people, 19 children and 2 adults.
And they said that they needed keys in order to get into the room, and it turns out they never even tried to open the door.
I just can't.
It's unconscionable. It's unbelievable. And, you know, part of this, though, Roland, is the doctrine that we've heard. You know, he talked about active shooter and the way to engage them after Columbine. But all we've heard, particularly African-American people have heard, is that police officers have the right to go home safe at night. So I think that they took that just a little too far, that they don't have to put themselves in harm's way, that that's not their jobs. And, you know, that's what I'm assuming, because any other explanation for this, I really can't fathom it. I think if you took an average citizen, they would want to go in to stop young children from being slaughtered. And here you have people who have all the tools in the world in order to do that job. And they are trained to do that job. And they just sit there and wait. And, you know, they did evacuate children from other classrooms, but the children who were in danger, actively calling 911 as they were probably instructed by their parents, sat in there thinking perhaps someone would come to their rescue. And someone who could have come to their rescue was only a few feet away, but just waited. I can't understand it.
Brianna, Joe Rogan and this some dude named Tim Kennedy the other day blamed Black Lives Matter for what happened in Uvalde by saying that, the attacks on police has made them afraid, scared, that they've been berated. And then they try to say that the lack of military training for officers resulted in this, but there was literally a training a few weeks before this actually happened with the Uvalde cops. Now what you have, Brianna, which is stunning, the city of Uvalde now has hired a law firm to keep the body cam footage from being released because it is going to be embarrassing. I'm sorry, you're taxpayers. I'm sorry, we're taxpayers. The people fund you, and so you think you don't want to release it. They're afraid it's going to show the cowards. It's going to show how weak they were and how they were completely all over the map on that day.
You're muted.
You're muted. Can't hear you, Brianna.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
I do not have the exact number, but I do recall hearing that it was like 2/3 of their city budget is actually to police.
That's most cities.
So,
that's literally most cities.
Right. But that city, which is a small city, which we
15,000 people.
Right, 50,000 people, and 2/3. So there's only 1/3 of something else you might be able to do that's benefits your community, but 2/3 of your budget went to police. And the police had, like you said, body armor, weapons, and so forth, and yet they still did not provide that protection when 2/3 of the budget was allocated just for that. I think that goes into a lot about, them not wanting to show what happens on the body cameras as we have this debate on defunding the police and what do the police actually do to protect us and what else those services can go to help our community. But if it weren't for the actual Border Patrol coming and helping those kids, a lot of those kids that were saved wouldn't have been saved. And so, yes, there's training. Yes, there was body armor. And I've heard the argument, and I understand, someone saying, well, what would you do? I know you're the police, but you go in there and you're going to get gunned down. And so are you sacrificing your life, which you decided when you decided to take on that job and the oath, or you just know that there's going to be these little boys and girls who are being gunned down without any training and any protection. And so it just, as it goes on more and more, we see the sadness. I think at first the chief was opening up because, people were defending and saying, oh, well, we didn't know. And because of the new rules and, we don't know where the gunman is and we don't want to have him hurt this X, Y, and Z. There were so many more of them at this point than it was of one of them that they should be able to have figured something out quicker than 58 minutes.
This is beyond me. When you see the detail, the Texas Tribune did a timeline breakdown, Matt, of what took place. And it is unbelievable how there was a massive failure at every level. And here's the deal. Look, I get it. No, let's just be real clear. They say in church all the time, everybody want to meet Jesus, but nobody wants to die. I get it. You want to go home safe, but when you choose to put that badge and gun, it's called to protect and serve. Not you, the public. And this commander literally, I don't understand how the hell you call yourself a commander and you show up at the scene without a radio and then you give an interview and say it, and I didn't want a radio. What? This is, and now, Matt, for the city to now try to hire a law firm to keep the body camera footage from going public, that's even more pathetic.
They do that to me all the time. I file those requests all the time, and they make it unnecessarily cumbersome. But if you would, Roland, I actually sent your producers the law. Ariel, would you pull up what I sent you, please, about the child endangerment statute from Texas? If you look at this section of the statute, look, prosecutors make arguments all the time. They make novel arguments, especially in novel situations. But I have racked my brain for weeks about how they can bring criminal indictments, and I think this might be the route. Because a person under Texas law commits an offense if he intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence by act or omission engages in conduct that places a child younger than 15 years in imminent danger of death, bodily injury, or physical or mental impairment. Here's the thing, Roland. I don't get how they do it. I've spent the nearly 10 years of my career both fighting against the cops, representing the cops, and prosecuting cases against people that cops develop. And you know what most of the time you see with cops? You see that they want this exact situation. They want to be Rambo. They want to run in. They want to be the conquering hero, right? They want to be the one who saves the day. But what I cannot understand for the life of me is how cops can be outside a room where you know there's one person in there with weaponry and you have military-grade weaponry and you don't go in and save kids. If there are no indictments from this case, this will be an even bigger travesty than Trump not being indicted for trying to steal the election. Because we're talking about the most defenseless population. Like, what is the point of having a police force if when they're called upon, they will not do the basic tenet of their job, which is protect people who cannot protect themselves? And what I've heard from even some of your commenters is, I don't know that they should be prosecuted. No, they absolutely should be prosecuted. Because the whole purpose is to protect these kids.
Yep.
And not only did they not do that, they didn't do that in short form. They didn't do that for an extremely extended period of time. And it infuriates me beyond measure, because how many cases do I file where some cop goes hard when she doesn't have to, right? Where some cop is trying to show how bold they are in a normal situation. But in the situation where you are being called to be a hero, you're a coward. I think every single one of them should be indicted. And I don't think there's anything beyond that that should happen, period. Because these kids died for no reason if there were people there who could have at least sought to protect them.
Indeed.
Sorry, I needed to make my case. And I think that makes the case, period.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?